Now, Dermot Corrigan is with us this morning. Dermot, happy St. Patrick's Day to you.
Feliz Dia de San Patricio to todos.
Where are you?
Just outside Madrid.
Right. Is it a big day in Madrid? Is there anything in Madrid? Is there even any notice of it?
Not really. Like there usually would be a bit of crack around the Irish bars, with Spanish people getting involved as well. Real, I just noticed on Twitter, have tweeted out a St. Patrick's Day message to all their fans, Irish fans around the world. But in it, typically there will be a little bit around. People would know about it, but it wouldn't be a huge celebration.
Yeah, okay. We're trying to find somewhere good to go for next year's St. Patrick's Day, so that our campaign starts now. If there's any town council or city council out there that would like OTB AM to broadcast live from their hotspot, then we're happy, Owen, to volunteer for that, right?
Oh yeah, I'm all up for that for sure. Like, do you feel a greater attachment to a day like today, Dermot, having lived abroad and I guess not having Irishness in your face 365 days a year?
Maybe a little bit. Like, I have two little kids and they wore their little green T-shirts this morning that have been provided by some family members, and we had some cards from people at home, which was nice. So I guess so. Like I was just listening to you there, and I would agree that, look, like when I used to live in Ireland, that St. Patrick's Day in Dublin wasn't my favourite day of the year. But now you do look to it maybe a little bit more when you're away, and a chance to catch up with family and friends and things like that. So in that kind of way, it's nice.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I had this premonition last night when I was looking at the results and going, this is the time of the year when Real Madrid all of a sudden cast off the crappy season they've been having and suddenly start winning games closely, and then all of a sudden explode into the Champions League semi-finals and finals and have a relatively routine 3-0 victory against somebody in the final. Is that what's going to happen this year? Have Real Madrid been doing their traditional rope-a-dope, where they're not having a great year whatsoever, but then at the end of it, they're holding up all big ears going, that's how this thing rolls, baby?
That's what they're hoping. The problem with that is that it's the same players who used to do that 4 or 5 years ago, Ramos, Modric, Kroos, Benzema. They're still the players who are Madrid's most important leaders in the team, and the guys who they look to dig them out of holes. So last night against Atlanta, Modric was really good, Kroos was really good, Benzema scored the goal, Ramos had it handy enough at the back. The worry for Madrid's fans will be that all those guys are well into their 30s now, and a team full of younger, faster, say Kylian Mbappe or Haaland might have a different idea about what would happen. So Madrid are, financial reasons, and just generally the team has grown old together. So they'd like to, that idea that you said there, they'd like for that to come through, but I'd be sceptical enough about it happening this year.
The injury crisis, Dermot, is something that's been hampering them for quite an amount of this season. I know you've been writing about this over the last few weeks. How much of this, according to Real Madrid fans, is down to coincidence, and how much is the club itself being blamed for what's happened?
It's a really interesting one because Madrid have an amazing setup. Like, they have maybe the best training facility in the world. That's where the game was last night, where we were able to watch the Atlanta game. Just a few of us who were able to get into it, the journalists. And the training ground is amazing. It's super modern setup there. They have France's World Cup winning fitness coach, was signed a couple of years ago. Zidane is big into fitness on the players. Madrid president Florentino Perez is big into making sure all the players are fit. But they have the worst injury record in La Liga, and players keep breaking down. You know, Hazard is the most obvious one, just because he's gone through such a hard spell, and every time he comes back, he seems to go out again. But other players have. You know, Ramos has been out 4 times. Dani Carvajal keeps breaking down. You know, something is definitely wrong there, and Zidane has said that he just can't explain it. The talk here was that Madrid had opened an internal inquiry. We're looking at what had gone wrong behind the scenes, whether it was to do with the way they were training, something going on in the medical staff, but nobody seems to know. But yeah, it's definitely holding them back, and it's definitely a worry for Madrid at the minute.
It seems that Zidane got a lot of credit during his first stint for being a hard taskmaster and I guess taking these guys to new heights and achieving their potential. Is he getting the same level of criticism for being a hard taskmaster this year, considering it might be a little bit too hard given the build-up of games?
Yeah, like Zidane he often says that if he can get his players to work as hard and to run as hard as their opponents, then Madrid's extra quality, the quality that the likes of Modric and Kroos have and Benzema, means that they're going to come out on top of most players, of most opposition teams. And they have, you know, maybe not in La Liga games, maybe when that has been a problem for them over the course of a season, that they wouldn't run as hard or be as intense, week to week in the league, and that cost them. But when the big games came around, the Champions League, they did give everything, and they had a tendency to come out on top. Zidane, it's a weird one because he's such a renowned figure here for what he did as a player, and also, winning 3 Champions Leagues in 2.5 seasons when he took over as coach. But there's always been kind of a certain amount of criticism, or people who feel that he, when it comes to organising a team or tactically, that he's not, maybe the sharpest coach around. He moved the team to 3 centre backs last night. That something he seems to be trialling, maybe to try and make them a bit more solid defensively, thinking about the big games or the big challenges that are coming up in the Champions League. Not sure that that's going to work out. I don't know if that really suits the players that he has. But yeah, his idea has always been that if we run faster, if we run harder, then we'll come out on top. The older the team gets and the more injuries that they get, the harder that is to come true for them.
It's interesting. It's not a million miles away from the philosophy of Jurgen Klopp and his heavy metal football, which is obviously predicated on a lot of hard running. And you've seen how they've broken down this season as well. There's probably a little bit of the style involved there, but also a little bit of hope when it comes to both teams, that when these things clear up over the next few weeks, they should be able to put a run together in Europe.
Yeah, there is not that much optimism around Spain at the minute about the level of their teams. Like Barcelona, the way they were hammered in the first leg by PSG, even when they came back and drew the second leg, they were kind of almost happy enough to go out with honour. We saw Sevilla were taken apart by Haaland. Atletico were going to have a tough task tonight against Chelsea. And even around Madrid, they don't. It's weird, but Madrid don't really see themselves as favourites for the competition. That it's funny how Madrid fans and the mood around the club can kind of manage to make them look like kind of plucky underdogs, or a little guy who's battling against the odds to try to come through. And they kind of see themselves a little bit that way against PSG or Man City or Chelsea, or teams who've been able to spend a lot more money recently. In one way, it doesn't make any sense because it's a team full of champions who are earning huge money. A lot of them were signed for big money, but they still, if they were to win the Champions League this season, they would see it as something that they had achieved against the odds, strange as that may be for a neutral to think about.
Yeah. The Eden Hazard situation, I didn't realise that the latest speculation is that he's going to have surgery and a lower back injury, and that would rule him out of not just the rest of the season, but also the Euros.
Yeah, it's super difficult for him. It's just everything seems to have gone wrong from when he arrived first. He was overweight. Then he broke his ankle, or his ankle was broken for him when he's playing against PSG in a couple of months after he arrived, and he's never got over that. The talk is that it's affecting him. Not that it's affecting him kind of mentally, that he's worried that he'll get injured all the time, but he's changed the way that he runs, the way that he moves, in order to subconsciously, in order to protect himself, to protect that ankle. There was a plate installed in the ankle, and there's also talk that maybe that hasn't worked out well, that it's causing him discomfort, that it's just affecting his whole balance, his whole rhythm as he runs, and that's causing him to break down in other areas. And Zidane, super frustrated about it. Like, Zidane, huge fan of Hazard, knows Hazard personally, and had been a big backer for Hazard to be signed, for years before he eventually arrived at the Bernabeu, and the two are very close. And Zidane keeps saying that sooner or later he's going to be a success here. But the amount of frustration, both from the coach and just generally around the club, at this huge guy who in a way was signed to replace Cristiano Ronaldo, and it just hasn't worked out at all. I
saw one stat suggesting that he has as many injuries since he's arrived in Madrid as he has goals, and a case of COVID on top of it. Yeah,
it's kind of a case of everything that can go wrong has gone wrong for him. And again, that comes back to what I was saying at the start, that because of that, Madrid are still so reliant on the older guys, on Ramos and Modric and Kroos, because everybody that they have tried to sign they have made an effort to try to renew the team, to bring in new players, but they're still stuck with the guys who were their champions from 6-7 years ago.
One other thing from last night, Dermot, that just struck me was that Vinicius opportunity, where he runs from his own half, plays a 1-2, an unbelievable piece of football, and then ends up putting the ball wide. You've watched a hell of a lot of him, I'd imagine, over the last few years. Is this indicative of where he's at the moment, that he doesn't really have that end product and that he's on the precipice of something special?
Yeah, one move couldn't really sum up Vinicius any more than that. Like, he's super dribbler, he's super fast. Madrid rely on him a lot, because they don't have that much pace elsewhere in the team. But once he gets in front of goal, his decision making is not so good at all. I think it's 12 goals in over 100 games that he's played. for Madrid, and nobody really trusts him to finish in front of goal, to have that composure. He's still only 20, and people, the hope around Madrid is that as he gets older and as he gets more experience and becomes a bit calmer in front of goal, that it will be better and he will start to score the goals. But it's become kind of a joke amongst Madrid fans, or there's no fans at the stadium at the minute, but when there were fans at the stadium, there would be like almost people would be expecting him to miss, and you had a feeling that he was expecting himself to miss. And you can see that in his teammates as well. Last night we missed the first chance early in the first half. I'm not sure if you could see it on the TV, but we could see Benzema did a anguished kind of jump up in frustration. Ramos as well, when he missed that amazing chance in the second half, fell to his knees, dramatic kind of collapse, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. And Vinicius knows that as well. He knows that his teammates they want him to score, but they don't trust him to score. And the feeling that until he kind of sorts that out, or if he's finally able to sort that out, he will be a great player. But if he can't, then he won't. That's
kind of the type of teammate I would expect Karim Benzema to be. I didn't really expect from Sergio Ramos at this stage of his career. I thought he'd be a bit more emotionally intelligent than that. But for Benzema, I'm like, yeah, I can see Benzema doing that all right.
Yeah, Benzema and Vinicius have a strange enough relationship in that Benzema is the older guy who, even on the pitch, you can see he's trying to coax the best out of Vinicius, or to set him up in best positions, and because Benzema is so clever with his movement and how he drags defences around, that he can open up the space to put Vinicius into. There was a famous, or for Madrid fans anyway, the cameras caught the Benzema talking to another French teammate in the tunnel, saying like, don't pass it to Vinicius, more or less. Everybody denied that that's what really had happened, but it was pretty clear that Benzema said something like, he's playing for the other team, like, don't give him the ball, give it to me instead. And that idea that Vinicius, that they don't know what's going to happen if they pass him the ball, and they're almost worried about giving him the ball because of what might happen, is not a good one to have in your team.
How are they actually playing? I suppose that's the most fundamental question I should have asked at the very start. Are they playing well enough, given the fact that it is these old stages, and they may well come up against a younger, fitter, hungrier, better team, but are they actually playing well at the moment?
No. Through the whole season, they've gone on stages where they go for a while playing okay, then they hit a crisis. They've lost to Cadiz, Alaves, Levante. Then suddenly it seems like Zidane is under pressure for his job, and the whole team, the media hear about how in the summer everybody's got to go, Ramos is gone, Modric is gone. Then they come to a big game, whether it's the Clásico against Barca back in the autumn or against Atletico, and they pull it out. They manage to find a way to win those games. But Barca and Atletico aren't in a great moment either, and Madrid's top level at the moment is nowhere near what it was 3 or 4 years ago. And again, they could prove me wrong, because these guys are still great players, but the feeling is that against the very best teams in Europe, that Madrid, even when they raise their game, it won't be enough to beat the very best.
When any team is talking about a lack of goals at the moment, or an attacker like Vinicius who perhaps isn't hitting the heights just yet, it's going to be a tough year to not make a move for either Haaland or Mbappe when you are Real Madrid, I'd imagine. Where are they fixed at the moment when you look over at Barcelona and know that they're in massive debt, and yet might still get the finances available from a bank loan to be able to potentially try and persuade Haaland to come to the Camp Nou? I presume that adds a whole other layer of pressure onto Real Madrid to get something big done this year.
Yeah, the talk for a couple of years has been that Madrid were after Kylian Mbappe, that Zidane, has worked a good relationship, a personal relationship with Mbappe, was persuading him to come. Mbappe was a Madrid fan as a kid, had Cristiano Ronaldo posters on his wall. And the feeling was that after, a few years in Paris Saint-Germain, that he would eventually end up at Madrid. Madrid's problem is that the crisis, the COVID pandemic hit just as they were renewing or rebuilding the Bernabeu stadium. So they've had to take out a big loan for that. And they've not been hit quite as badly as Barcelona. They're not in the same kind of awful state as Barca are, but their finances are not great. Right at the minute, they're trying to negotiate pay cuts with the players. Guys who are out of contract like Ramos and Modric in the summer, they're going to have to accept reduced terms. And the idea that they could do that to their current players and then bring in Mbappe, who's going to ask for a huge amount of money to be easily the best player at the club, is going to be difficult to manage kind of diplomatically within the dressing room. Madrid fans would love Mbappe or Haaland to come in. There's talk that Madrid have a great relationship with Dortmund, because they've loaned players in between them over recent years a good bit. The two chief executives seem to be quite tight, and Haaland might be a cheaper option than Mbappe. But even still, Madrid don't have a huge amount of money to spend on it. So again, that goes back to what I was saying before, that they almost see themselves as, being poorer relations compared to Man City or to Paris Saint-Germain, that they don't have the money to compete right at the very top of the transfer market the way they used to, which is a strange position for Madrid to be in. But if they were to push the boat out to sign Mbappe or Haaland, it would be a really big move for them. And, you wouldn't put it past Florentino Perez, because he has the connections and he can magic up money from different places when he needs to, but it would be a big challenge for him.
Can we talk a little bit about tonight's game? A lot of people were quite surprised by the way that Atleti took on Chelsea in the first game, and they obviously suffered for that. So what happened there? Because we've been hearing about this was a new version of Atletico Madrid, and Diego Simeone had changed the team. Didn't quite look like it looked like an old school kind of from 6-7 years ago Atletico Madrid team. Yeah,
for sure. And stuff I've been writing on the Athletic, and just watching them week to week, Atletico have made a big effort to play a different type of football. They've got three at the back. They've a lot more footballers in the team than they used to. Players like João Felix, even some of their centre backs are kind of ball playing centre backs. They're not the Diego Godin, warrior types of the past. And through the autumn, they were flying. They got 50 points, record number of points for Atletico. We're flying, 11 points clear of Barcelona at the top of the league at one stage if they had won all their games in hand. The wheels just kind of started to come off around January. The timing of the Chelsea first leg was really bad for them. A mixture of injuries. Kieran Trippier is a really important player for them, being banned by the FA for that betting offence, which, from this perspective here in Spain was a crazy thing to happen to them. They got a good few COVID cases in January as well. And Simeone, when these type of off-the-field factors kind of hit him, he went back to what he knows the best to try to dig out a nil-all. But the problem was that he doesn't have those warrior-type players anymore. The guys that he has in the squad now are more comfortable playing passing football and going on the attack. So when they tried to defend against Chelsea, it didn't work out too well. They kind of got caught between two stools, and it was one of the worst performances of the season.
The one thing about Chelsea is that they're not fully firing themselves in terms of their attacking flair, despite the fact that they've invested €1 billion in the attacking midfielders and strikers that they have on their books. It's very early in Tuchel's reign, and he hasn't quite got a fully functioning attack just yet. So this tie is not dead, despite the fact that Atletico are 1-0 down heading into the second leg.
Yeah, I'd imagine it'll be very, very tight tonight. That Chelsea will be, they know that if they keep a clean sheet, they go through, and Atletico are unlikely to pile players forward. They will play they will have more of their better attacking players back. Trippier is really important to them. He should play right wing back, Carrasco at left wing back, and it looks like João Felix is going to start. Like, João Felix is a super interesting one. He's kind of the symbol of this new Atletico. He's a silky ball player. He's not the hardest working off the ball. Simeone's been trying to kind of mold him into a Simeone type player, which hasn't gone exactly as Simeone or João Felix had hoped. But if they're going to score a goal, the most likely is for João Felix to create something, maybe for Luis Suarez to finish tonight. So if João Felix is in the starting lineup, it means Atletico are going to try and go on the front foot, try and play a little bit more football, and hope that they will be able to I don't expect them to go roaring forward or to go all out attack, but maybe that would give them a little bit more chance of breaking through that tough Chelsea defence.
What do you expect to happen?
0-0 seems like the most likely result in the game. Atletico, they do. I'd like to think that Atletico could put on a better attacking show. I've seen them play some really good football this season in some of the other games against Barcelona. Back in the autumn, they played really well and really pummeled Barca in that game and could have won. They won 1-0, but they could have won more easily. So if they go for it, maybe they will be able to unlock Chelsea, but the head would say that 0-0 and Chelsea to go through is the most likely result.
Dermot, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us, and happy St. Patrick's Day again. Cheers.
Same to you guys.
Dermot Corrigan from The Athletic there. OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead.